Hello, I'm Richard Murphy, and today, 9th December 2020, there are news reports about the opinion of a body called the Wealth Tax Commission. Now, I happen to know the Wealth Tax Commissioners who prepared this report, and they've shared the findings with me before the publication, so I've got a good idea of what they've been talking about. Their suggestion is that if people with net asset worth, that is, the total value of their assets less their debts, net asset worth of more than £500,000, and therefore couples with a valuation of more than £1 million, were to be charged a one-off wealth tax of 1%, the government could raise £260 billion in revenue to offset against the national debt. Now, the questions that arise are, is that reasonable? Are there opportunities for people to avoid this? Is the payment pattern that they're proposing fair? But most important of all, is this necessary? Now, let's just deal with those questions about what they're proposing. Is it fair? £500,000 actually seems quite small in London. Outside London, it might seem fairer. £1 million is still a great deal of money. You have to remember you're well into the top 10% of property owners in the country if a couple have property of £1 million, and a 1% tax rate is pretty low. It could be progressive, but they haven't modelled that. Progressive means that the rate goes up as your wealth goes up. They have not looked at that possibility. What they have simply done is estimated what could be raised. What I'm much more interested in is this a good idea? And I believe that in some senses the Wealth Tax Commissioners have done a good job by looking at this tax and raising this figure. And they have put in their report, and I know that it's there in part to appease critics like me, the possibility that this tax need never be raised because, as I've argued time and again over the course of 2020, we don't need tax increases now because any tax increase now is likely to reduce demand in the economy, and reducing demand in the economy will reduce the number of people employed in the UK and therefore make a recession worse. And that's not what I want. And so they're saying quite specifically, this may not be the time to raise taxes, and they recognise it, but when and if a government says taxes must increase, and the Conservative government has indicated that it believes that time will arrive, what the Wealth Tax Commissioners are putting forward is the idea that actually there are options with regard to tax. Because remember, most people say that the wealthy cannot possibly meet the demands for new tax revenues. They say that we would have to look at increasing income tax or increasing national insurance or increasing VAT and maybe, but only maybe, increasing corporation tax and capital gains tax, taxes on wealth. Well, what this report does is put on the table the fact that there's no way that you can easily raise the sum that could be raised from a wealth tax by raising income tax or VAT or national insurance in the short or even the medium term. The amounts that would have to go up in those cases would be so significant that the cost would be so great that ordinary households would really be burdened by the additional tax responsibility. But there is this pot out there of wealth that could be taxed. At 1%, they're basically saying there could be a tax charge, for example, of a person who is a millionaire, an individual who's a millionaire, and who has therefore got £500,000 worth of free assets. 1% of the total excess, which is £500,000, will of course be £5,000. That's 1% of £500,000. So £5,000 would be due, and they allow 5 years for that payment to be made. In other words, at a rate of £1,000 a year. Unbelievably, that apparently comes in their estimate to £260 billion in total over that 5-year period. And I think that this is a useful piece of work as a consequence, even if it never happens, and I suspect it never will, because all that it proves is that whenever a Conservative government says, we've got to tax you more, the argument can be put back to them, yeah, but tax wealth first because those people have the greatest capacity to pay. And that's precisely the reason why I welcome this piece of work. It's not just an exercise in academic theory. It's actually a piece of political manoeuvring which is quite welcome by showing that there are options and that the standard argument that the wealthy can't pay all the additional taxes that might be due is not true, even if taxes were due at all. And for that reason, as I say, I welcome this. Thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, I'm pleased. If you want to see other videos like this, there are links below this screen. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter as well, @RichardJMurphy. Look at my blog, Tax Research UK. And if you'd like to donate, because this video series is being largely paid for by donations, there is a donations button on every single post on my blog. Thanks a lot.